I know what I want. I know what kind of God I need to be for you, for all of us.
He was the villain who started it all. The trickster who threw New York into chaos, who got slammed into the floor by the Hulk, who died with a knife in his hand trying to protect his brother. And now, at the end of everything, Loki sits alone on a throne at the end of time, holding the entire multiverse together with his bare hands. But what does that actually mean for Avengers? Doomsday? What is the god of stories going to do when Doctor Doom comes knocking? And is Loki about to make the biggest sacrifice in the history of the MCU? Or is he the one secret weapon that can stop Doom from burning every reality to the ground? Today, we're breaking down the role and the importance of Loki in the MCU, where his story stands right now, why he might be the single most important character left in the entire saga, and what he might be forced to do when Doom finally arrives. Loki's ending in Season 2 gets talked about a lot, and for good reason. It was perfect. After spending what felt like centuries trying to fix the temporal loom, trying to save his friends, trying to do the impossible, Loki finally understood the truth. The loom was a failsafe. It was always going to collapse. There was no version of events where he could keep every timeline alive and keep the machine running. He was trying to scale something to infinity, and infinity doesn't scale. So He Who Remains gave him the choice. Kill Sylvie. Let the sacred timeline continue. Let the pruning resume. Let billions die so that the multiverse stays small and controlled and safe. Or let it all burn. And Loki chose a third option. He chose to change the equation. He walked out onto the gangway as the radiation tore his clothes apart and reformed them into a new outfit with his classic horns. He ripped the loom apart with his own magic. And then, as the branches started to die one by one, he grabbed them. He grabbed every single timeline, one at a time, and poured his power into them, breathing them back to life. He walked to the throne at the end of time, the throne where He Who Remains once sat, and he sat down. And the camera pulled back to reveal Yggdrasil, the World Tree, every timeline in existence flowing through one figure at the center. Loki didn't become He Who Remains. He became something else. He became the god of stories, the one who holds it all together so that everyone, everywhere, across every reality gets to keep existing. It was the best ending Marvel had put on screen in years, and it should have been a moment of triumph. But here's the thing about that throne. It's a prison. Loki gave up everything to sit there. He gave up Mobius. He gave up Sylvie. He gave up the friends he made at the TVA, the only family he'd ever really chosen for himself. He achieved his glorious purpose, the words that have followed him since the very first Avengers movie. And the cost of that purpose was total isolation. He sits alone outside of time, holding the threads of reality, watching everyone he loves live their lives without him, unable to touch any of it, unable to be a part of the world he is single-handedly keeping alive. So when the credits rolled, we were left wondering, what's next? How does the story move forward from a character who is now, quite literally, the thing keeping the story alive? The answer is Avengers: Doomsday. And the answer is terrifying. Because here's what we know. Avengers: Doomsday is set to release on December 18th, 2026, directed by the Russo brothers, the same duo who made Infinity War and Endgame. The villain is no longer Kang. After everything that happened with the previous actor, Marvel pivoted hard, and they made the boldest casting choice in the studio's history. Robert Downey Jr., the man who played Iron Man, the man who was the MCU for over a decade, is coming back. Not as Tony Stark, as Doctor Doom, Victor Von Doom, the most iconic villain in Marvel Comics history. And Tom Hiddleston is confirmed to return as Loki in the Doomsday cast. So now we have to ask the question that every Marvel fan has been asking since that finale. What happens when the God of Stories meets Doctor Doom? When the being who holds the multiverse together comes face to face with the being who wants to own it? Let's talk about why this matters so much. Because the entire multiverse saga has been building to a collision, and Loki is sitting at the exact center of it. After the events of Loki, after No Way Home, after Multiverse of Madness, after the Marvels, the sacred timeline is no longer protected. The pruning stopped. The TVA isn't policing reality the way it used to. And that means the walls between universes are breaking down. Realities are bleeding into each other. This is the concept of incursions, when two universes collide and one or both of them are destroyed. We got a taste of it in Multiverse of Madness, when we saw a dead universe that had been wiped out by exactly this kind of event. And in the Fantastic Four, First Steps, we saw Doom take an interest in Franklin Richards, a child with godlike reality warping power. Doom doesn't just want to conquer a country anymore. He wants to control the multiverse itself. He wants the power to reshape reality in his own image. And to do that, he has to deal with the one being who currently holds reality in his hands. That's Loki. Whether Marvel makes it the centerpiece or just a chess move, the logic is impossible to ignore. If Doom wants to rewrite the multiverse, then the God of Stories is standing directly in his way. Loki is the load-bearing wall of the entire MCU right now. Every universe, including the one that contains Doom and the Fantastic Four, is being sustained by Loki on that throne. If you want to remake everything, you either have to get Loki to move, or you have to take his place. And that sets up a confrontation that fans have been theorizing about for over a year. The trickster who learned to hold the universe together against the dictator who wants to tear it apart and rebuild it. It's not just a hero versus a villain. It's two opposing philosophies about what should happen to all of existence. So what does Loki actually do when Doom arrives? This is where we have to move from what we know into what we can imagine, because the plot of Doomsday is still locked away behind Marvel's tightest security. But the setup gives us a roadmap. Picture it. Loki is on the throne, sustaining the timelines, when the incursions begin to accelerate. Universes are colliding faster than he can stabilize them. He's pouring more and more of himself into the threads just to keep them from snapping. The strain is unbearable. Every timeline he saves costs him a little more of himself, and he can feel something pulling at the fabric of reality. Something deliberate. Something that isn't an accident. Someone is causing the incursions on purpose. Someone is using the chaos to climb toward the center of everything. And Loki, sitting at that center, is the first to feel Doom coming. He knows it's coming long before anyone else does. He can feel the threads being plucked, one by a hand that doesn't belong to him. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another Marvel deep dive. Here's the tragic position Loki is in. He cannot leave the throne. The moment he stands up, the moment he stops holding the threads, the multiverse begins to die. So the most powerful being in the MCU is also the most trapped. He's a god who can't move, and Doom knows it. Imagine Doom realizing that the one thing standing between him and total control is a being who literally cannot get up to fight him. That's not a battle. That's a siege. Doom doesn't need to defeat Loki in single combat. He needs to make Loki choose. Either Loki abandons the throne to stop Doom, and the multiverse collapses on its own, or Loki stays on the throne and lets Doom do whatever he wants, because he's powerless to intervene. It's the same kind of impossible choice He Who Remains once gave him. Kill the one or doom the many. And Loki has faced that exact dilemma before. He knows what these choices cost. He knows that there's almost never a clean answer, only the least terrible one. But here's why Loki is the perfect character to face Doom, and why his arc has been quietly building toward this his entire MCU life. Loki's whole journey has been about choices, about free will, about being told that he was written to lose, that his story always ends the same way, that he is destined to be the villain, the trickster, the burden. He Who Remains showed him his entire life on a screen and told him it was all predetermined. He showed Loki every betrayal, every death, every failure, and told him that no matter what he did, the story would always bend back to the same shape. And Loki rejected that. He spent 2 seasons learning that the point isn't power. The point is choosing what to do with the time you have and the people you have it with. He learned to time slip, to control it, to use it not to escape, but to understand. He became a being who chose love and sacrifice over the throne, and then chose the throne anyway, because it was the only way to give everyone else the freedom he never had. He turned his own prison into everyone else's liberty. Doom is the opposite of that. Doom believes he is the only one fit to rule. Doom believes that reality should bend to his will, that he alone knows how the story should go. He is a control freak on a cosmic scale, the ultimate author trying to overwrite every other voice. In the comics, this is exactly who Doom becomes during Secret Wars. He steals the power of godhood. He builds Battleworld out of the fragments of dead universes, and he installs himself as its absolute ruler, a god king who demands worship and erases anyone who remembers things were ever different. That's the version of Doom that may be coming. And Loki, the god of stories, the one who told Verity that stories will always be told no matter what happens to the universe, is the one being in all of existence who understands that you cannot own a story. You can only hold space for it. That's the philosophical heart of this whole confrontation. Doom wants to be the only story. Loki wants every story to survive. That's not just a fight over power. It's a fight over what reality is even for. So what might Loki do during Doom's arrival? In our imagined version, Loki becomes the multiverse's last line of defense in a way no one expects. Not by fighting, by holding, by refusing to let go. While the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, Thor, the Thunderbolts, and every hero Marvel can assemble are out there battling Doom across colliding realities, Loki is doing the invisible work. He's keeping the timelines alive long enough for the heroes to have a chance. Every second the multiverse doesn't collapse is a second Loki is buying with his own existence. He's the reason there's still a board to play the game on. And maybe, just maybe, he finds a way to do more. Maybe he uses his control over the timelines to give the heroes an edge, to pull the right people into the right places, to nudge events the way He Who Remains once did, except for hope instead of control. Maybe he reaches out across the threads and finds Mobius one more time. Maybe he whispers to Sylvie through the timeline she's living in, the variant who started all of this by killing He Who Remains, and tells her that it wasn't for nothing. Maybe the god of stories writes himself one last scene with the people he gave up. And here's the heartbreaking part, the part that mirrors his whole life. Loki might have to die again. Or worse, he might have to do something even more final than death. Because if Doomsday leads directly into Secret Wars, and we know it does, then the multiverse is heading toward a reset. Battleworld, the collapse and rebirth of everything. And in the comics, it was the god of stories who reminded everyone that even when the universe ends, the story doesn't. Loki might be the one who carries the memory of everything through the end of all things. He might be the bridge between the old multiverse and whatever comes after. He might sacrifice the throne, sacrifice his godhood, sacrifice the very thing he gave up everything to become, in order to let a new story begin. Think about that. A character who spent a decade clawing for a throne, who finally got the greatest throne in all of creation. choosing to give it up so that the universe can be reborn free of the man who would rule it forever. That would be the final, perfect note of the most complete arc Marvel has ever written. Let's talk about the journey, because no character in the MCU has traveled further. 2011, Thor. A jealous prince learns he was adopted, that his whole life was a lie, and lets go of the Rainbow Bridge rather than live as second best. 2012, The Avengers. A villain throws a city into chaos and gets humbled by a green monster. 2013, Dark World. A prisoner who fakes his own death and steals a throne. 2017, Ragnarok. A trickster who finally chooses his brother over his schemes. 2018, Infinity War. A man who dies trying to kill Thanos with a tiny knife, going out with the words, "You will never be a god," knowing it would cost him his life. 2021, Loki Season 1. A variant pulled out of his own timeline, shown his entire predetermined life, who chooses to fight against fate. Anyway, 2023, Loki Season 2. A god who learns the only way to free everyone is to imprison himself, who walks to the throne and holds the multiverse together so that everyone else gets to choose. From villain to prisoner to brother to martyr to god. From the man who wanted to rule to the man who chose to serve. And now, 2026, Doomsday. The god of stories faces the man who wants to end all stories but his own. Loki was always the most human character in a universe full of gods and machines. He was selfish, he was scared, he was desperate to be loved and convinced he never would be. He lied, he schemed, he betrayed everyone who ever trusted him. And he grew. Slowly, painfully, across a decade and a half of films and television, he became the opposite of what he started as. The boy who wanted the throne for himself sat on the ultimate throne and used it to give everyone else their freedom. That's the most complete character arc Marvel has ever told. He started the entire Avengers saga as the threat that brought the heroes together in 2012, and now, at the very end of the saga, he may be the one holding the door open so those same heroes can finish the fight. The villain who started it all might be the reason it all gets to end the right way. And it means that when Doom arrives, the stakes aren't just cosmic. They're personal. Because Loki finally has something worth protecting, and it's everything. Whether Loki dies in Doomsday, sacrifices himself in Secret Wars, or somehow survives to see the new multiverse he helped create, his importance is undeniable. He is the keystone. Pull him out, and it all comes down. The entire multiverse saga, every Spider-Man, every variant, every incursion, every reality bleeding into another, all of it roots through one figure on one throne at the end of time. Doom can't win until he gets past Loki. The heroes can't survive without Loki holding the line. And the new universe that comes after, if there is one, will only exist because the god of stories decided that everyone deserves a story, even him. He is not the loudest character in the final battle. He may not even be on screen for most of it. But he is the foundation the entire ending is built on. And Marvel has spent 15 years quietly preparing him for exactly this moment. The role of Loki in the MCU's final act isn't the loud one. It isn't the punching and the explosions. It's the quiet, impossible weight of holding everything together while everyone else fights to save it. Loki knows it's coming. He's felt the threads straining for a long time now. He's felt the incursions building, the universes pressing against each other, the slow approach of a will far more controlling than his own ever was. And when Doom finally reaches the center of everything, the trickster who started it all will be there waiting. Horns and all, ready to make the choice he's been preparing for his entire life. With power comes burden. Loki learned that the hard way, over and over, across more deaths and rebirths than any character in the MCU. And when the end of everything arrives at his door wearing the face of Iron Man, and the crown of Doctor Doom, the god of stories will do what he was always meant to do. He'll hold on. He'll buy the heroes their chance. He'll protect every story but his own. And if the price is everything, he'll pay it, because he finally understands that the best stories are the ones where you give it all away so that someone else gets to keep going. Loki knows it's coming, and for once in his long, tragic, glorious life, he's ready.